Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. We got another great episode coming to you here with Mr. David Asarnow from a company called businessnitrogen.com. David and I have known each other a very long time. We actually used to work together way back when in the entrepreneurial world. David's gone on to build companies, own companies. He's got about $5 million going right now in his business. I invited him on because David is a specialized guy in the regards of taking social selling and online leads to offline and teaching how to convert as well. So pay attention because we're going to talk a lot about social selling. We're going to talk a lot about what do you do in order to build trust and how do you do this the right way, right? Especially, if you're going to be selling on a high level and just B2B, you've got to know how to build trust and rapport very, very quickly. And what should you do? What shouldn't you do? You'll hear us talk about this as we go along. We're also going to talk about, using the power of conversation, in regarding stories and different things throughout. So without further ado, let's go to the interview right now with Mr. David Asarnow from businessnitrogen.com. Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, bringing you another great guest. His name is Mr. David Asarnow, and David and I have known each other for a very, very long time. We're going to talk today a lot about selling online and how to take it online to offline, as well as some social selling. David, welcome to the call, sir.
Thanks, Doug, for having me. It's an honor.
So for those of you who don't know, David and I go way back. And we've done a lot of work together. David has interest in companies today, doing over 5 million. I remember when David started out in his Dave, should we call it the marketing agency? Is that a way to call it, or something different?
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. We started off, and people think we're a marketing agency. What we really are is a sales empowerment agency, because most people think a marketing agencies can help them get leads. We actually go from the beginning. How do you find, attract, and convert and build a lifetime relationship? All the things that we've worked on and talked about over a decade ago.
That's true. Yeah. So David and I used to spend some long nights and weekends. Yeah. We used to work on business together, and these were the things that we used to talk about. How do you find, keep, attract, convert, lock in clients for life, and keep expanding the sales. So I think we've both taken that in different directions, but in the same, I would say, same direction, but just maybe different facets of that.
Different facets, and I also add this. The exact same thing happens if you want to build a scalable company. How do you find, attract, and convert potential team members and build that team that wants to be with you for life?
And that's so key, because that cost of turnover is expensive in companies. And, that's where, I think I probably went on my facet a little different than you did. And what I've watched you do over the years, and I've told you this, not just because we're really good friends, but just because it's really gratifying to see, where we both came from, where you've grown to. And I think people here would love to, before we go there, Dave, if somebody wants to, oh my gosh, let's talk to David, how do they get a hold of you?
It's really easy. Businessnitrogen.com, businessnitrogen.com.
And I remember when you named the company, I used to think, because you had businessoxygen.com and then businessnitrogen.com. And I was like, that was pretty cool. And I know I know your son was into automobiles, and I was like, is that where the nitrogen came from?
Well, actually, the real reason, the whole thing, we were Business Oxygen as we started out, and it was businessoxygen.net. And I was in Pittsburgh helping, doing a strategy planning session with clients. And they're like, you need a .com. And I started joking. I said, what should I be? Business Helium? I'll float your business higher. And they started laughing. And they're like, how about Business Nitrogen? I'm like, oh, nitrogen, nitrous oxide, accelerant. I like that. And it was available. And here's the funny thing. And you talk about a name and a brand and how it can change or define you. And what happened is literally we changed the Business Nitrogen. I still have businessoxygen.net up. I haven't touched it in years. We're deciding what we're going to do. But as soon as we went to Business Nitrogen, we doubled our business that year and continued our progression since then. So it's amazing what can happen with a name.
Yeah, the name, a lot of people, don't realize, like, they name their company a certain thing and then they don't like their name later on. They can change it, is what I keep telling them.
The name is just the name. And here's the funny thing. Our clients didn't care. The ones that we had at the time, hey, we're just marketing under a different brand. No one could care.
Yeah, I mean, because companies, one of the growth strategies for companies is, mergers and acquisitions. So a lot of times when something's acquired or they merge, they change the name anyways, right?
Yes.
So sometimes it makes me kind of chuckle a little bit because people get so hung up on, I named this thing, Pandora Industries or whatever because of this reason, but the market's telling them something different.
Just look at Apple. Apple's changed their logo and their brand multiple times over the years. I mean, sure. It is what it is. It's for the here and now, and your future is open.
Well, let's talk about the future. And one of the things I'd like to delve into is, you and I have a very vast business to business background. And a lot of times people who are trying to do online, lead generation and conversion, it's a little different game doing it for the B2B audience than it is doing it for the other audience,
Sure.
And so I know you and I are very skilled in this, and I think a lot of people here will get extreme value out of us talking about it. So where do you see the biggest mistakes that people make when trying to sell to a B2B audience from going online to offline?
I think there's quite a few mistakes that many people make. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they try to avoid having a conversation with people because we live in this text world society and chat world society that people social selling does have its point, chatting with someone. But even years ago, when I started on Facebook and we started messaging with people, because I was advertising on Facebook in 2008, so I'm probably one of the grandfathers of Facebook marketing. One of the things that I used to do even back then, I would message someone and I say, hey, it looks like we swim in the same pond. We have 75 mutual friends or acquaintances. I'd love to connect with you. And just that little thing would say, yes. The next thing, as soon as they connect, I would say, hey, I'd love to schedule a call and learn a little bit more about you and your business. And it was really a call just to build a relationship, not having any pretense, no selling. And today, so many people, especially with LinkedIn and with Facebook, people are just looking, where's the quick win? Who can I solicit right away? It's still about relationships. And I think that the online marketing really paves the way and makes it so much easier to reach out to anyone that you want to connect with. The question is, how do you add value to someone before money ever exchanges hands? So that way you now have a relationship. And that's how I look at it.
And I agree with you 100%. It's all about personalized, relevant, and value added, right? And so, and it drives me nuts when people hit me on LinkedIn, and it's like, what they're doing. I mean, it's a pre-templated thing, and it's like, it drops the credibility. This is what I don't think a lot of people, really realize when we're trying to sell, especially a product or service that requires some thought to it, a higher end type, product. Sure. It requires a relationship, and that relationship, every once in a while, somebody will go, hey, I don't need the relationship, but the majority of people out there need that relationship. And so the relationship has to be built on trust. So the first connection point, and this is what I tell all my folks, is your first connection point is the most important first connection point, right? Because that, as we begin, we proceed. And so if we're coming out and we're just trying to be one of those pitch people, then people are going to go, okay, I can't trust this person. And what I know you do like a master, because I've seen you do it over the years and we've worked together so long, is you build these really strong relationships, and those strong relationships then end up trusting you and then end up asking you for the business versus you actually even asking them many times, even though you will ask.
Isn't it amazing what happens when people are leaning forward so much? They're like, well, can you help me? Well, I'm sure I can, but let's talk a little bit more about you first. I mean, so I'll always take it away anyway, because I don't want our company to be known as that company that you just described.
Right.
And by the way, and you know this, we have a program called Leads on Demand that we utilize for Facebook and for LinkedIn. And we run it for clients. So we are one of those companies that does outreach. The question is, what are the commonalities? What are the interest points? How can we turn this into a real world conversation? And for instance, for me, I was targeting, I'm a Florida Gator. So we were reaching out to other Florida Gator CEOs. And my intro is, hey, I notice you're a fellow Florida Gator entrepreneur. I'd love to be able to connect with you and see what your journey's been like and going on in today. And so many people would reply back saying, I get hit up day and night on LinkedIn, but because you're a Gator, I'm happy to connect with you and have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And then it turns into a conversation. And when I don't pitch them at the end, they're like, you're not pitching me? I'm like, no, it's great to meet you. What's the biggest pain, challenge, or problem that you're having in your business? And they'll tell me, and I'll say, would you like some insight on that? And then we turn into a different conversation, and then they can ask us if they're interested.
So, what's so interesting, I imagine people who are listening here, and by the way, we're speaking with Mr. David Asarnow from businessnitrogen.com. And, we're talking about how do you build a relationship to lead toward a sale? And so many people are in such a rush to make the sale. And I can imagine, if there are people listening, sales teams listening to this at this moment, they're going, oh yeah, but I got a quota, David. Doug, come on. I mean, we can't take forever. I've got to hit the numbers. How quickly does building a relationship happen online if you do it the right way?
We've had conversations with clients in that first conversation. I'll just be frank. I don't go for a one call close. I always want to leave it hanging and want them coming back for more. And so in that first conversation, our focus, and whether it's me or Bob or anyone on our team, our goal is to add value and understand the pain, problem, challenge that they're having, and set a frame where we may be the company that could solve their need beyond anyone else. If there looks like there's interest, we'll make sure that all the key parties and decision makers are on the next call. And many times my team will bring me on that call to add extra value. So we've had people that have moved forward. And by the way, the average lifetime value of each of our clients, and I just did this over the last 5 years, is over 100 grand. So, we're not talking about low ticket, we're talking about big investments. And even with our company, the lowest investment's over 60,000 a year. So when you look at that, we've had that happen in 2 calls, and people say, okay, I want you guys, because here's what happens. If you do things the right way and set the frame and build a relationship focused on value, what's going to happen between that first and second call is they're going to go check you out online. They're going to, if you have videos, by the way, if you don't have videos, you must have videos. And Doug, if you want me to go into it all, I will. Just ask me. So you have to have videos. People are going to check you out. They're going to see what you have on your website. They're going to check you out and Google you and find out all the information that they can. And so when they come back, if you've done the right thing in framing yourself online. And if they opt into your website and you've got the right value-based communication going forward, you're 90% there by the time before you even get on the call. So it's not only what you do on the call, it's what you do outside of the call or the meeting that determines whether that client's going to move forward.
So let's talk about that framing, what I would call framing, right? The pre-framing with the videos and with things like that, because it is so true, especially those who are selling to, I would say, CEOs and business owners or any executive level. They are going to check you out. They're gonna go and say, okay, is this person legitimate? Because what we're all looking for when we're buying something is we want somebody that we can trust, but we don't know that person. So there's that kind of that gap, between, okay, is this person real and can they help me or not? Right. So let's speak to the videos and speak to the pre-work that, should be done in order to actually achieve what we're talking about.
Well, if you're the entrepreneur, you have an opportunity to frame your business online, first and foremost. I remember reading something, Doug, that was put out by YouTube about 7 years ago. And it said this. It said that their studies show that CEOs would rather watch a 10-minute video on YouTube than read an email. And oftentimes when I'm in front of a group or a crowd, I'll ask how many of you would rather watch a 5 to 10-minute video than sit there and read a long email? And almost every hand goes up. Today, YouTube is the #2 search engine. When I want information, I actually go to YouTube before I go to Amazon or Google or Facebook or anything, because I want to hear what real people have to say. And so that was 6 to 7 years ago I read that. Just this in the last quarter, Facebook and Instagram changed their entire algorithm to have a preference of video over posts. So people were putting posts and long-term posts. Why did they do this? Because what their studies have found is the average person, and I've been at Facebook multiple times over the past few years because we have an agency that's run multi-million dollars a month in paid ad spend on Facebook and Instagram. And so one of the things they said is the average person scrolls 300 feet a day. That's taller than the Statue of Liberty. Okay, they're scrolling 300 feet a day. The one thing that they found is that the more videos that are shown to people, it slows the roll, and people actually stop and they'll watch it for minutes. And so if you take, in these companies, YouTube, Google, which is Google, Facebook, which is also Instagram, they make all their decision based upon data. They're data-driven decisions. They're not arbitrarily saying video is important. They change their algorithm because it's showing statistics. And if you want to make decisions based upon data and statistics, listen to what they're doing. Not what they're saying, listen to what they're doing. Video is very important. In fact, I can tell you this, most clients who end up moving forward with us, even though the last conversation they have is with me, they've watched at least 5 or more videos on the website or online that I've put out over the years. And so they're making decisions every time they're watching a video. They're making decisions every time they go to a page on your website. Is this the company for me? Are we aligned? Do we speak the same language? Is this the person or company that can help me solve the problems that I'm having? They're making those decisions. It's incumbent upon each of us as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as sales leaders, to make that job very easy for them.
And you do that through what I affectionately call, framing, right? You set the frame ahead of time. And if you're setting if people think about this, you walk into a museum or anything and you see a picture there and all of a sudden you get drawn into that picture. Well, why? I mean, it was, there's the lighting's thought through, the frame is thought through, if the painting is, 300 years old, maybe they didn't think through the frame, or maybe they did, but something captivates and pulls us into that picture.
Yes.
And I see video and YouTube and everything you're discussing here as the same thing. We're drawing that person in, it's it's that, you go to the beach on a sunny day and there's thousands of people there. And all of a sudden there's a shape that walks on the beach and it catches your attention. Right. Yeah. And it just starts pulling the attention in. And as the object gets closer, usually that level of, interest goes up. So it's the same thing here when, with video and with all the framing, I can't tell how many times that, people have said, geez, I saw you published in Forbes, or I saw your video, or, I listened to your podcast or whatever. And a lot of business to business companies are starting to get this, David, but I think many of them are still like, well, hey, we can just keep doing it the old traditional way. And I have a feeling, and I should say a industry experience in looking at the data as well, because I agree with you on the video. I do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Right. I just did it today. I was going down through there and I was like, a video. Right. And I'm like, click. Right. But then I clicked on a writing and I'm like, too long. And I went down and I went to the next video. So let's discuss, because people, I know from talking to people that a lot of them are going, oh my God, you know what? The pandemic hit, this hit, selling seems to be changed, but I think it'll come back. I think it'll go back to the old way. I don't see it that way. I think there'll be parts of it, but go ahead.
I'll give you an example though. We have clients of ours that, one of our clients has a $2 billion company, and we train, Bob and I train their entire sales team. Okay. We started with them going on 3 years now. Actually, it's 3 years this summer. And he said that the amount of deals and the deal flow and the leads and the discovery calls and closes went up like this, like 45-degree angle since we started working with them. And they do it the old-fashioned way. They actually cold call. Mm-hmm. And so cold calling is not dead. I'm going to tell you this. In fact, it's better than ever because so many people are scared to call. The question is, how do you go about doing it? And one of the things that we talk about is consistency. What do CEOs want? And by the way, I believe in calling on the CEO. I've always done it. Remember, when I called on, or as high as you can go. Remember years ago, we're talking almost 28 years ago, when I called on McDonald's and I mailed a shoe in a FedEx box and said, now that I have my foot in your door, may I please have 5 minutes of your time? Because they didn't return my call. So if they don't return your call, you have to have a creative way. Today, we do a video brochure that we'll mail out to people, and someone will open it up and a video will play. Oh, there you are. So we'll mail out a video brochure to someone, or we'll have a great call with someone. And we'll send the video brochure confirming our conversation, or, hey, it's Dave. You had a conversation with Lauren or Maddie or Bob, and they told me this about your company. We do all these little things to help separate us out from everyone else. But I'll give you an example. When you're cold calling someone, you have to put yourself in the mind of the CEO. What does the CEO want from their team? They want consistency. They want people who do what they say they're going to do. They want people who are going to operate at the highest of levels, just like their company. And here's the thing, people don't like change. So it's not going to happen overnight. So we created a series of voicemails and at the end of every voicemail, we say, oh, by the way, if I don't hear back from you, I will call you next Monday, exact same time, 2 p.m. And if not, and you can reach me at this number, but if not, you will hear from me then. And they're probably thinking, they're not going to call me back. They're not going to do what they say they're going to do. And then on the 8th call, here's the voicemail message. Hey, Doug, it's Dave. But by now, you already know my voice. I have a question for you. Every night before I go to bed, I talk to God. But for some reason, I can't speak with you. As usual, Doug, I'm available at 678-555-1212. Or, yes, Doug, I will call you back next week, the exact same time. So we play with the resistance. You play with the resistance. You do anything you can do. If you've identified, these are the 10 people that I want to do business with. If I do business with 3 out of those 10, not only am I going to change their world, it will change my company, because these are the people I want to do business with. You need to be willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And most people, and by most, I say 97% of the people, are not willing to do what they say they're going to do.
I agree that consistency builds trust. And a lot of people think, well, geez, I might be being a pest by calling every single week. I just went through this with a company, David. I put a a 21-day, everyday contact campaigns together for them. And they're like, man, isn't this overkill? I'm like, try it. Right. So, because it's so respectful in the nature of what, and I tell people, don't be differentiated, be different. You sending a video in the mail that's confirming the appointment or whatever it's not differentiating you. It's different, right? People are going to get that and they're going to go, okay, this is a different level play than we're having. And, as you're doing the voicemails, for example, a lot of people don't know to leave those type of voicemails. They don't know that to use humor in a lot of ways. And people love humor.
Have fun, play with the resistance. I just had a meeting this morning with a client we've had for almost 2 years. And I've only had, ever since they came on board, I've only had a couple of meetings and I haven't spoken to them for almost a year. And so I requested a meeting and I got on and they looked nervous. I'm like, why are you nervous? They're like, we love working with your team. Your team has changed our lives. And we're scared that you're going to tell us that we're not moving fast enough for you. You're going to tell us bye-bye. And I'm like, no, our team loves working with you. I really just wanted to connect and hear how things are going and how we can continue to improve. They're like, you really want to know? And I'm like, yeah, you guys are awesome. And so anyway, it turned into an hour conversation just based upon value. I said, okay, next time I reach out to have a meeting with you, just know that I'm really just reaching out to say hi.
and that tends to blow people's minds because everybody else is coming in with that pitch, right? So
yes.
It's and if we're going to lead to a complex sale or we're going to lead to a sale that requires some time and investments and thoughts and all that, we've got to build a relationship. I think that's probably the theme of what we're talking about, going from online to offline is you've got to build that relationship, and cold calling is not that scary. I agree with you. And I also agree cold calling is not dead. When you were speaking, I was like, geez, you know what? I remember I actually cold called a guy and that actually got me a little tiny account call to, NASCAR. Right. But it was a cold call and I had to go build that relationship with this person. And it took me a while to get it done. But I used to go and back then we could go face to face. So, I'd go for Chinese food because that was their favorite. Every other month I would eat Chinese food and,
by the way, Doug, I don't think it was just their favorite because I know all the times that I stayed with you and visited you in Houston, you took me to Chinese quite a bit.
Yeah, that's true. There was Chinese, but it was more Asian because a third of the community was Asian food. But yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I still love it today. I still eat that type of food today. So it's all right. So I'm the guy. And by the way, folks, we're speaking with Mr. David Asarnow from businessnitrogen.com. Check him out. Check out the process. If you're watching the video, he veered left, I think, and you can see the logo behind him. So that's pretty cool. So all right, so David, I'm a company. My sales team is doing it the traditional way, but I want to supplement this using social, or I want to supplement this using online. What's kind of my response would be call David, but what would be your response to that? How do they start?
First, identify who do you serve? Who do you serve beyond anyone else? And where are they hanging out? So if you want to reach someone online, are they the kind of person that's hanging out on LinkedIn? And if they are, you create a plan around LinkedIn. If they're not, and by the way, this will blow people away. May or may not. If you want to talk to doctors, you don't need to go to them on LinkedIn. If you want to work with doctors, guess where they're hanging out? Facebook. No, doctors aren't on Facebook. Surgeons aren't. Yes, they are. So the idea here is, how do you reach out to people that you don't know? And I want you to think through the entire step of the process strategically. It's not just, I'm going to reach out. Hey, Doug, I see that, we both like purple elephants. And I'd love to connect with you. No, you need to think through, Doug, just like you said, thinking through what is the 21-day plan for reaching out to the person? How do you add value? But here's the thing. It's not just reaching out and say, by email message number 3, I'd like to invite you to a webinar. That means you've given up already. Hey, and here's one of the biggest mistakes that people make. When someone says, yeah, I'd love to talk. Okay, here's my calendar. Go book an appointment. You know how many times people have done that to me? I'm willing to talk. As soon as they gave me their calendar link, I'm like, they're trying to sell me. I'm not even setting the appointment. That's when you say, great, I'm available. Do any of these 3 times work for you? Keep the conversation going. So it's predicated on building value. So pick your niche, pick where you're going to contact them. Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it LinkedIn? Those are the easiest ways to do it. And plan out the next 30 days. Or in our case, we plan out the next 12 weeks. Every week, what are you going to do? We don't do it every day, but at least once a week, doing what you say you're going to do. And how do you change it up amongst modalities? So listen, if this is someone you really want to do business with, and you've identified this is someone you want to build a relationship with, okay, great. If they're not responding to your messages, do you go ahead and send them a brochure? And this is a personal video message right here on the top. Or if you have their cell phone number, do you send them a video? Or do you send them a video and send the video via LinkedIn or Facebook? I just gave you 5 different ways that you could start adding value and separating yourselves out from everyone else. And here's the thing. Go to serve. Go with a basis of adding value. And then, in my belief, everything else will take care of itself.
And I would imagine, David, if you said to me, Doug, these are the ways of going about this thing, and I'm sitting there listening, I go, I don't know what they actually want, because I have found that is a big challenge for people a lot of times. They identify like, I want to go for CEOs of, $25 million companies or whatever, but they really don't understand what value means to those people, right? And I equate value in 2 places. It's personal return on investment, and it's also professional return on investment. And most people pitch professional return on investment, but they're leaving out the human component of that, which is as important in many cases as what the professional is. But, if I didn't know, and I would love to get your opinion on this because we haven't talked about this one, I would actually just call my target market and then ask them, could I ask you a few questions and would you be willing to help me? I'm trying to do some market research to get into markets like you're in. But,
That's perfect. You just did it the way that I would do it as well, is ask people for help. You know why? People want to help other people. And I said it on very slow intentionally. People want to help other people. If you ask for help, people will help. I'll give you an example. My son was looking for an internship last summer, and the school only does so much, and you're competing with everyone else. One of the things that Josh ended up doing was finding out people who were head of departments in different financial companies, and he reached out to them on LinkedIn and said, "Hi, my name is Josh Asarnow. I'm a junior. He's now a senior. I'm a junior at Tulane University, studying finance and economics. And I'm looking at getting in this field in this niche. I'd love it. I was wondering if you'd give me 15 minutes of your time. I want to, maybe you can guide me the best way to enter this field." One of the people that he talked to ended up having multiple conversations with him, introduced him into his company. He had an internship this past summer with Alliance Bernstein out of Nashville, all from a cold outreach that he did on his own.
And look, if a person who I would say is coming up into the world, right? He was
19 years old when he did that, or 20 years old.
Right, yeah. Right. If a person at 19 can do this, then certainly somebody sitting here listening who's 35 can do the same exact thing.
Yes.
And I'll add another story to this, David, because we know each other's children pretty well. And I remember when Jacqueline, my youngest daughter, she came to me one day and she said, "Dad, I'm thinking I want to become the first female, NHL, National Hockey League, general manager, right? That's kind of a goal I have." I said, "Well, that's really cool." She goes, "How would I go about that?" I said, "Well, look, you're 15 years old. Why don't you put together a bunch of, names, go online, research, find out who the general managers are, and then, just call them, right? The numbers are there, call them or email them. And they said, well, okay, Dad, that sounds like a good idea. So little did I know that her and her sister actually did go to do that. And I had told them, I said, look, if you want to know what to say, just let me know. But I would just tell them exactly what Josh just said. Hey, I'm 15 years old. I'm really giving this consideration. I was wondering if I could have a conversation. So they little to my knowledge, they went out and they cold called every general manager in the NHL in, Canada, the United States, and the Boston Bruins, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Calgary Flames actually responded and said, yeah, we'll have conversations.
That's awesome.
And Mr. Trevelin is his last name, from the Calgary Flames, actually was mentoring her for a little bit because he found this so different and so unique that he wanted to help.
Yes.
It's not hard, folks who are listening to this, just call and ask for help. Say, something, compliment them. Listen, I see you're in a really nice position in life, and someday I might want to be where you are, and I just don't know how to get there. And I was hoping maybe you could give me some help and some pointers on how to get there, because anybody who's successful, you and I both know, David, it didn't happen overnight, right? It's,
people think it happened overnight.
Exactly. It's how many years did it take to become an overnight success, right? The old saying. So 2030. Well, look,
growing.
Yeah. And it will always continue to grow. And that's the thing. I imagine now if somebody called you and said, hey, David, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, and Z. And I sought you out because I find that you're doing quite well in the industry that I'm looking to come into. Would you mind having a 15-minute conversation with me so I can ask you 3 to 5 questions and get some answers?
I've done it. In the past year, I've had 3 high school or college kids reach out to me and ask to interview me. And I said, sure. Other people I said no to because I didn't know who they were. But someone says, I'm in high school, I'm in college, I've researched you and your company, and I'd love to be able to interview you on my podcast. I'm starting a podcast. Would you be willing to get? Yeah, I'm happy to help because I want people to pay it forward. I'll do stuff like that. And I want people to do it for my kids. And so I will say yes to things like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be just where they're young, right? I mean, it could be you're 35 and you call and you say, hey, you know what? I've got 2 kids. I have a wife. I'm thinking of making a life's transition. I see you in a position where I might want to be. And you could just compliment that person. Or, in my case, hey, I'm 59 years old and I'm thinking of taking a different life's direction now that my kids are getting out of the house, et cetera, whatever it might be. So, it's not that difficult, but I think a lot of times people, they feel that they're going to be rejected, so that they shouldn't, or maybe they were framed, growing up at, hey, we were taught not to interrupt people or whatever it might be. So
I want to say something I want to go back to video. Something hit my head real quick. Do you remember when we were with Tony and Chet and we asked Tony to create an intro video for us so that way before people got on a call? And we never got that, but we said it really would help things, right? So one of the things that I've done, and the reason I wanted to bring, I don't know why it just popped in my head, but I wanted to share this because when we go through the funnel, so many times people think they're going to talk to me. And when they find out they're not going to talk to me, they'll cancel their appointment in the past. So one of the things, because I'm on the videos on the front page, and then once it shows it's not my calendar that they're booked in. So I created a video when I was in Necker Island, Richard Branson's island in December. And I just held my cell phone out there and it was a walk and talk showing the island. Hey, this is David Asarnow. Thanks so much for coming to this page. This tells me that you're looking at growing your business. I want to tell you about that next call you're going to have. I'm happen to be here on this island, stranded because of COVID, with my good friend and confidant, Bob Sears. Bob and I worked together years ago with Tony Robbins. So I did a whole video building value in Bob. And so and then I say, and before we go any further, Bob wants to tell you a few things. And then Bob's sitting there, he did his own little video talking about what the call is going to be like. So it's a 7-minute video, but here's what I can tell you happened. Our show up rate went through the roof. Our cancellation rate dropped out of nowhere. And people just sometimes want to talk to him about Necker Island and what was that experience like?
Right.
Because he did get to meet Richard. He has Richard's cell phone. They've talked and they've texted since then. Why? Bob was the first person ever on Necker Island to have COVID. So, there's a bomb there. But one of the things that I thought about when I was there is like, how can I capitalize on this huge, most people would say it's a big disaster. I've got an expensive trip and now I'm stranded in a room. We're separated in our rooms on separate side of the islands. What can we do? We just started having fun with it. And we started doing videos there and telling stories. So here's the thing. If you're the executive, if you're the entrepreneur and you're saying, well, how do I translate and build the rapport that people are watching with my videos to someone on my team? It's exactly, Doug, what you and I asked to happen a decade ago that we didn't. You can do that for your people. If you do a video introduction, building them up, adding value to them, it's going to help you. It's going to help them, which helps you and your business.
And I fully agree with what you're saying. As you and I have already tested this out as well in other capacities, but it's, I think you also struck on a really important topic, which was stories. In your videos, don't be afraid to tell a story, because people love stories, and they can be personal stories. They can be business stories. Just in I just did a solo podcast earlier, and I was talking about the experience I was having with my insurance company and how they left me on hold for an hour and 12 minutes. Right. And how people answered the phone and use the phone can affect their profitability of their business. And, and I named that company Geico on the things. Right. So, but I've had people, start to with stories, they respond to the stories and they go, you know what? I had that same thing happen to me with, XYZ insurance. You did too, David. All right.
So I have a question. Is saving 15% worth waiting an hour and a half?
And the answer to that question is no.
There you go, Geico.
So, and it kills me because I've been with Geico for 19 years, which is unheard of in an insurance business, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm listening. I'm like, are we recording this call? Yes, Geico. I've been here for 19 years. Maybe you ought to listen to this call, right? And I was just going on and on, and playing with them. But the reality is, I did start looking for other insurance companies afterwards.
Wait, why don't you use USAA? I've used USAA for over 20 years, and they're the most expensive. But I can tell you this: I've never waited on a hold more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, and that's important. It's like, why do people use American Express Platinum, right? It's the same reason. You call into, Chase Bank or whatever, and you be on hold for 2 hours, and call in American Express, they answer hello, and it's right out of the gate. So that is added value, and that's being different. It's not differentiating, it's being different. So stories are really important. And I know you use a lot of stories. Over the years, I've watched, you tell all kinds of stories.
And by the way, I want to say this. You all have to start somewhere. I started off sucking. And I know so many people who see me today would have a hard time believing that I'd get up in front of the room and I would be shaking and I would be nervous and I would read from my notes. And I remember when I hadn't even started. I was a region manager for a company, and I was about 3 or 4 years in there. And I had a vice president of sales who said, "Dave, you have such great presence, and you're so good one-on-one with people. But I put you up in front of a room, and you are dry and boring as F." I said, "Oh, thanks." And I said, what suggestions do you have for me? He said, "Dave, you need to learn how to tell stories." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "When you're presenting numbers are numbers, but there's a story around those numbers. What do those numbers mean? I want you to think about this. And my challenge to you next time you get up here, how can you tell a really exciting story that people remember the numbers that you just presented? Because you just present numbers, as soon as you're off, no one's going to remember a darn thing you said. But if you tell a really good story, people remember how you made them feel during that story. And it doesn't matter what they remember because you're the person who makes them feel this way or that way. And that was a really good point and a really good lesson that Mark Graff gave to me. And so much so that I ended up getting the opportunity a couple of years later to start a new division for that company. And as you know, it grew to $45 million in less than 5 years. And it was only a $68 million company when I started. So the ability to build rapport, stories build rapport unconsciously. That's it. So you've got, if you are going to give yourself one thing to do over the next year, become great at telling stories. That's it.
I firmly agree with you. And, we learn as children through play and through stories. And so as we become big children, that's all we are as adults, just in a bigger body, for some reason, people let go of that play and that stories thing. And I know you never have, and I don't either. And this is part of what people gravitate toward because they know that they're not doing it themselves. I believe in a lot of ways. So, as you tell stories, people can recall a story of something that happened to them at, 3 years old. I mean, I just did the other day. I was like thinking, and I was remembering my grandmother teaching me how to tie my shoes when I was 3 years old. And I'm like, wow, how the hell do I remember back that far? Right. But grandma was telling me a story about how you take the lace and this is the thing. And this is the story that comes around it, how people tie their shoes. Ta-da,
I told a real interesting story. I created a new podcast series and we're launching out, and it's 0 to 60 because I'm doing it while I'm driving in my car with the top down and just videoing, just talking. And my video guy's starting and stopping. So I'm just driving along, looking at the road, talking. And I said, everything that I needed to know about becoming an entrepreneur, I learned at 3 years old. Now, 3 years old, how did I learn everything? So I learned about the importance of family. I was spending all the time with my grandparents at that time. My sister was born, my grandmother was taking me every day. My grandparents at 50, my grandfather decided to sell everything and move to Florida and start all over. And all of a sudden I was without them, but then they flew up and I ended up spending as a 4-year-old over a month at a time with my grandparents. I wasn't in school yet. So I was there with them starting their business. I got to be Curious George, asking the questions and things like that. And all of a sudden, when I turned 50, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got the blood left my face. And I was like, oh my gosh, my grandfather started over at 50 and created this amazing life and amazing business. I'm 50 now. I've done so much up till now. What can I do? What impact can I make? What kind of contribution can I make to society from here on out for the rest of my life? And by the way, I just told the story. Everything I needed to know about being an entrepreneur, being able to take risks. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can change the world. You can change your life. You can change your family. You can make the greatest impact ever. You just need to make the decision and being willing to do it. That's it.
So the interesting part of this also for me, David, what you're talking about is absolutely true. I have the privilege with talking with a lot of people now over 50, right? Who are, through client relationships who I actually get an opportunity to talk to them about what they're doing. And I have people coming in their 80s and 90s, saying to me, you know what? I'm bored. Right? I'm bored. I want a life or I want to pay for my grandchildren's, education, or, I just want to be able to travel the world a little more, and I'm doing fine because I have all this, cash behind me, but I want something to be able to do it, or I want tax write-offs or whatever it is. So it really doesn't matter what age that people really want to get going in business. It's just a matter of, like you said, you learned everything you needed to know at 3 years old, and you just carry that forward, and you'll do fine as long as you stay consistent with client acquisition. That's the key in business, right? So
yes. If you want to know, if the number one thing, what's closest to the cash? How do you generate revenue? How do you build that into a business and not a hobby? That's it. Go sell something.
Yeah. And short, long, right? Stay with short-term things that bring cash in quickly, and then work on the long-term as need be. Don't work on long, short, because that'll cost a lot of money and a lot of carrying of cash over time. So
Whale hunting is sexy. Whale hunting is sexy, but you need to fill the coffers with clients you can serve today.
Yeah. And remember in whale hunting, if you look at the Inuits, they had a whole team of people going after the whale. They didn't have just, it wasn't Joe who jumped in the boat and said, I think I'll land this whale, right? I mean, Joe ended up under the water at that point.
Yeah.
So, well, I could talk to you all day as we always do. I have to ask, if people want to reach out to you, what type of client should reach out to you, David, for business nitrogen?
For our main client is usually about 750 to 5 million on average. Our largest client obviously is 2 billion, so we can serve higher. And if you're looking to attract leads, as you heard, we have a leads on demand system that we can plug you into. And if you're looking for more, we do that as well. But either way, if you just want some information, go to businessnitrogen.com. We put out plenty of videos. I have a newsletter. I put out videos every week, and all they are to add value, to serve you. And if I can help you be better at what you do and serving others, I've done my job.
Agreed. And for those of you who trust me, I endorse David 100%. So, check him out. Check out the businessnitrogen.com. And I'm sure you'll be glad you did. David, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it. As always, it's great to reconnect.
Thanks, Doug.
Hey guys, wasn't that pretty good? Right? I mean, we talked a lot about building value. You've got to add value to the conversation. If you don't add value to the conversation, what is value? What they deem as value, the person you're speaking with. When you build value, whether it's on a professional or personal, and preferably both on their return on investment in that conversation, you will get higher levels of trust. It's that simple. So make sure you build some value out on every single conversation. If nothing else, practice it, because it is a really great skill. And again, you got to build value whether you're online or offline. If you're online, you just don't go out there and pitch your product or service. Start a relationship, build that relationship up, build trust, build everything that's going on with that relationship. And then that leads naturally to the next conversation. Finding commonality, of course, is very helpful. And having something to say that will provide added value to the client. So if you are looking for marketing help, marketing services, to take your business online, or you're online, you want more help, go to David, go to businessnitrogen.com. I've known the gentleman for a long, long time. He's definitely got ethics, and he definitely will take care of you. If you're looking for our sales revenue growth and you want to play that game with how do I increase my revenues or increase my profitability, I'm certainly here to help you. And as always, Doug at businesssuccessfactors.com or businesssuccessfactors.com is the website, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn at Doug Brown 1234. So that's another episode of the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast. Now go out there, make some sales, build your business, increase your profitability, and improve your life. If you like this podcast, as always, please give it a 5-star review. And if you would like to have a subject matter, that you'd like me to cover on this show, just email in or call in and let me know. I'll be happy to take that and see what I can do. I'm here for you, and this is why we do this particular show. And I would be remiss without plugging my book, www.winwinsellingbook.com, on the power of raising your profitability through conversations and handling objections. Great book. Not because I wrote it, because I read it, and I think it's a great book. So anyways, that's it. So thanks for being here for another episode.